everyone, Jeff here with A Taste for Whiskey, and I'm telling you, we're continuing our series in the regions of Scotch, and today we're going to go right into Speyside, which is one of my favorites. It's kind of where I cut my teeth on because of the non-peatedness, and the non-smoke. So I'm here with my good friend Bob, who is a wealth of knowledge. So I'm going to turn it right over to him.
I'm going to go back to my famous little map here.
I love this map.
And I don't think I mentioned this in the earlier videos that we've done. In my retirement, my bucket list is to visit every distillery in Scotland. So each one of these pins represents a distillery in Scotland that I visited.
You've been to a lot.
55 of them. Some of them at least 2 or 3 or 4 times. Now, we're going to talk about this little area right up here called Speyside. And it's called Speyside because the Spey River runs right through the middle. And Speyside has the biggies.
Yes.
So you go into any restaurant, what scotch will you find behind, besides a blended scotch? What other scotches might you find? Macallan's. You'll find Macallan. You'll find maybe Glenlivet or maybe Glenfiddich. And those big ones really had their marketing machines out early. And I'm talking in the 30s, 40s, and 50s before anybody else was out there. So this is a little area called Speyside. Now the interesting thing about Speyside, one of the distilleries in Speyside is Glenfarclas. What does Glenfarclas say on the label?
Well, it says Highland.
Yeah. So at one time, Speyside was considered part of Highland. So a lot of Speyside single malts have listed on their label, it doesn't say Speyside, it says Highland.
Which you'll see that on Macallan as well.
Yeah. So this little area right here, and I mentioned this I think a couple videos ago, is like driving from Muncie to Indianapolis. I mean, maybe we're talking 100 miles across.
Jeez.
And in that, and literally, I couldn't do it because I'm not a good golfer, but you could basically tee up at any distillery and drive the ball to the next one. I mean, they're on top of each other.
That's not a bad idea.
You could do that. So we're in Speyside. Besides the biggies that everybody knows, I'm showing a couple others here. One is Balvenie, which for me is just an excellent distillery.
I agree.
The one we have here is a Caribbean cask finish, and I'm putting this out there to show you what people are doing with scotches these days. So do you remember what it means to finish a scotch?
Oh yeah, it's putting it into a barrel, sometimes a secondary barrel, where you whether it's a wine, whether it's a fortified, whether it's a rum. Yeah.
So it was aged primarily for a good number of years in an ex-bourbon barrel.
Yep.
And then they move it over to, in this case, a rum barrel. Another one that we have here, again, not a big name, is Benriach. And I'm going to ask you to pour a little bit of the Benriach 21 because it's one of my favorites. And then Glenfarclas, which is another Speyside that is one of the few remaining family-owned distilleries in Scotland. Most of the distilleries are owned by conglomerates. We've got people like Edrington.
Can't forget the cameraman.
Can't forget the cameraman. We've got companies like Edrington that owns Macallan's and Highland Park and Glenrothes. We've got the real biggie, Diageo, that owns, I think, 28 distilleries across Scotland. But Glenfarclas is still family owned and a very interesting, wonderful distillery.
And I'll tell you right now, so this is the thing I love about Speyside and the misconception that all scotches are peat and smoke. This Benriach is fruity. I don't even have to put this up to my nose, and it is just blowing up with fruits and spice and almost like a dessert. Like after you're done eating Thanksgiving and you go into the dessert room, this is what I'm getting. Just all these pies and fruits.
And you look at the color and you see it's kind of a light color, a light gold.
Yes.
That tells me that this is aged in bourbon barrels.
Bourbon barrels.
Wasn't put into anything else after that. I mean, you can probably read that on the label, but you can just look at it and see that what this is probably first fill or second fill bourbon barrels.
And Bob, you can tell there's no coloring added to this, right?
No coloring at all. This is just natural, and Benriach is one of those, again, I think underrated scotches that are finally starting to get recognized for their quality.
Absolutely, and a lot of my friends, this is their go-to. They absolutely love this, and they were bourbon drinkers.
Yeah,
they were bourbon drinkers, and they said, they were like, in Scotch all smoky and peaty and dirt, and like, no. Misconception.
Yeah. Whenever I have a bourbon drinker come over to my house and sit here in the Scotch room with me, and they go, I don't like Scotch, I say, well, let me give you something and you tell me if it's bourbon or Scotch. I'll give them something. I normally start with a Balvenie double wood, which to me is the most bourbon-like Scotch. You can just light and floral, and they're surprised because they think all Scotch is Lafroig or Ardbeg or Lagavulin.
That's right.
Yeah, but this is excellent. Speyside Scotch. Jeff, as always, Slàinte, my friend.
Slàinte var.